Hi there, and welcome to another blog post here on chrisryan.ca. I'm Chris. Thanks for dropping by. The reason why I'm doing this blog post, it's actually a follow-up to my blog post that was entitled Real Estate Forecast for 2015 here in Nova Scotia. This is sort of a follow-up to that. The reason why I'm doing it also is because the weather that we've been having over the past 3 weeks has been brutal. It's put everybody, including myself, in a bit of a funk. So what I've started to do is I've started to make a list here that I'm going to go through, and these are some really good news stories about our economy, about employment, about future things that are going to happen. And also I've got a bit of an inside track on the shipbuilding, which is kind of cool because I just listed a house for a military gentleman and he was a part of it, so it's kind of neat. So we'll start off with CREA, Canadian Real Estate Association, and they do statistics for across the country. So earlier this year, they put out a forecast predicting that Nova Scotia will be the second largest sales increase in the country this year. And that's a huge thing because Nova Scotia hasn't been on that type of list in a handful of years. So at 3.7% growth, we're just behind BC, which is scheduled to be at 4.9%. They also predict that prices will start to stabilize as it becomes more of a balanced budget because more consumers are going to be entering into the marketplace to buy product and to eat into that surplus of listings that are currently on the market from last year. A couple of things that sort of statistics that I can talk about or one-offs would be the Trillium. So the Trillium downtown in the South End is a very large condominium corporation, relatively expensive, and the penthouse. So the penthouse there was recently sold for just under $2 million. So that's a big price point. That person believes in Halifax. The other is that Southwest Properties has recently kicked off the sales efforts for their new development just down by the public gardens called the Pavilion, which is absolutely spectacular. And they are approximately 80% sold out in one weekend. And it wasn't the inexpensive units, it was the really expensive units. So the inexpensive units, the smaller ones, are still available. So what does that mean? That means that there's a lot of people out there, doctors, lawyers, and people of influence, that believe in the future of Halifax because they're buying these things and a lot of the time for cash as investments and also where they would like to retire. So those are two great things. From an employment perspective, RBC announced earlier this month that they are going to be taking some space at the old Research in Motion building, or RIM building, and they're going to be creating a finance center there, and they're going to have a target of around 2,000 jobs in the next handful of years, with a short-term target of about 150 jobs in 2015. This is also rides on the back of the shipbuilding, which I've also blogged about, and they are scheduled to hire about 7,800 people over the next 3 years, 60% of which are going to be between Nova Scotia and New Brunswick, and their short-term goal is around 2,000 people. And I know headhunters that are actually calling right now, filling positions. The other is that, as I had mentioned, I've just listed a house for someone who works in the armed forces, and he was an engineer, and he told me something that was kind of interesting. He said that the general public thinks that the steel is going to be cut for shipbuilding in sort of August, September, but he said it's actually going to be starting to be cut in July. So all of these things are great things. And the last two bullets that I've picked up on is apartment building sales are up again in Halifax. So once again, the apartment buildings that are being sold are not typically to local funds. They are coming from Ontario, BC, Quebec, and Alberta. And those big insurance companies or those big funds are coming here to invest in the future of Halifax via apartment buildings because they believe that a boom is coming. So again, all good things. And lastly, Stats Canada recently announced that the job market in Nova Scotia has actually improved in Q4 of 2014 and will continue to improve into 2015. So thank you very much for watching. Basically, the whole reason I did this is that it's getting positive, it's getting better, the snow will melt, and if you're thinking about getting into the real estate market, please feel free to surf around this website on chrisryan.ca. Give me a call and let's have a chat. Thanks.